Can hormones make you feel mentally slow? Yes, here's how. You may feel like your mind just isn't as sharp as it used to be. Thoughts take longer to form, words don't come as easily, and simple decisions feel strangely effortful. Many women between 30 and 45 worry that they're losing focus, intelligence, or mental speed, but in most cases, this feeling of being mentally slow is hormonal, not personal. Hormones play a powerful role in how quickly your brain processes information. Estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, thyroid hormones, and insulin all influence memory, attention, and mental energy. After 30, natural hormone shifts, stress, poor sleep, and blood sugar changes can slow brain signaling even when everything else seems normal. In this video, you'll learn how hormones affect mental speed, why this becomes common after 30, and what gentle, hormone-friendly habits can help your mind feel clear and sharp again. Estrogen and brain processing speed. Why thoughts feel slower. When your mind needs more time than it used to. You may notice that you need extra time to find words, follow conversations, or switch between tasks. Multitasking feels harder. Thinking isn't impossible, it just feels slower. For many women after 30, this change happens because estrogen directly affects how fast and efficiently the brain processes information. How estrogen supports brain speed. Estrogen plays a key role in brain communication. It supports neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, dopamine, and serotonin, which help neurons send signals quickly and clearly. Estrogen also improves blood flow to the brain and supports the connections between brain cells. When estrogen signaling is steady, thoughts move smoothly, focus is easier, and recall feels faster. What changes after 30? After 30, estrogen doesn't simply decline, it begins to fluctuate. Levels rise and fall more unevenly across the menstrual cycle and from month to month. These fluctuations affect how consistently estrogen can support brain signaling. When estrogen dips or becomes unpredictable, neurotransmitter activity slows. Brain blood flow becomes less efficient. Neural communication feels less sharp. This doesn't mean damage, it means reduced hormonal support. Why mental speed feels inconsistent. Many women notice that mental clarity varies throughout the month. Some days you feel sharp and focused, other days feel foggy and slow. This variability is a strong clue that hormones are involved. Estrogen-sensitive brain regions respond differently depending on hormone levels, which explains why mental speed can change without warning. Common symptoms women notice. When estrogen-related brain support is reduced, women often experience slower word recall, difficulty focusing or multitasking, brain fog that comes and goes, reduced mental stamina, feeling mentally heavy. These symptoms are subtle but frustrating, especially for women who are used to thinking quickly. Why this is often misunderstood. Mental slowness is often blamed on stress, age, or lack of effort. Women may worry they're losing cognitive ability. In reality, estrogen doesn't affect intelligence, it affects efficiency. The brain still works, it just needs stronger hormonal support to operate at full speed. How stress makes estrogen effects worse. Chronic stress raises cortisol, which interferes with estrogen signaling in the brain. Even when estrogen is present, cortisol can blunt its effects. This means stress doesn't just feel overwhelming, it literally slows brain communication, especially when estrogen support is already fluctuating. Doctor-approved ways to support estrogen's brain role. Supporting estrogen-related brain speed is about reducing interference. Helpful support includes consistent sleep and wake times, managing stress to lower cortisol, eating regularly to stabilize blood sugar, gentle, regular movement to support circulation, avoiding chronic overstimulation. These habits allow estrogen to communicate more effectively with the brain. Estrogen plays a direct role in how quickly your brain processes information. After 30, fluctuations in estrogen can slow mental speed not because your brain is failing, but because hormonal support has changed. When estrogen signaling is supported and stress is reduced, mental clarity and sharpness often return naturally. Cortisol and mental overload when stress slows the brain. When your brain feels tired, not lazy, you may sit down to think and feel an immediate sense of mental fatigue. Concentration slips, decisions feel heavy, and even simple tasks take more effort than they should. This doesn't mean you lack motivation or intelligence. For many women after 30, this happens because cortisol, the main stress hormone, is overloading the brain, slowing clarity and focus. What cortisol does to brain function. Cortisol is designed to help you respond to short-term stress. In small bursts, it sharpens focus and reaction time, but when cortisol stays elevated for long periods, it does the opposite. Chronic cortisol exposure reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex, the thinking, planning part of the brain, increases noise in stress and emotion centers, disrupts memory formation and recall. The brain becomes focused on survival, not clarity. Why stress feels more mentally draining after 30. After 30, hormonal buffering against stress weakens. Progesterone, which calms the nervous system, often declines. Estrogen, which supports brain communication, fluctuates. Without these buffers, cortisol's effects feel stronger. Mental stress that once felt manageable now creates cognitive overload. The brain stays alert but inefficiently active, yet unfocused. This is why many women say, "My mind feels busy, but not productive." Mental load versus physical stress. Modern stress is mostly mental, not physical. Constant thinking, planning, remembering, and worrying keep cortisol elevated all day. Unlike physical stress, mental stress doesn't have a clear endpoint. There's no signal telling cortisol to shut off. Over time, this continuous activation exhausts brain resources and slows processing speed. How cortisol creates brain fog. When cortisol remains high, blood flow shifts away from higher thinking centers. Neurotransmitter balance is disrupted. The brain prioritizes threat detection over creativity and focus. This creates the feeling of being mentally stuck or slow, even when you're trying hard to concentrate. Common symptoms women experience. When cortisol-driven overload affects the brain, women often notice difficulty concentrating, forgetfulness or losing train of thought, feeling mentally overwhelmed by small tasks, reduced ability to multitask, brain fog that worsens during busy periods. These symptoms often improve during calm or restful days, pointing to stress as the trigger. Why this is often misinterpreted. Because stress is normalized, mental slowness is often blamed on personality, burnout, or lack of discipline. Women may push themselves harder, which raises cortisol further. Understanding cortisol's role helps break this cycle. You don't need more pressure, you need less hormonal overload. Doctor-approved ways to reduce cortisol's impact on the brain. Supporting brain clarity starts with reducing constant activation. Helpful support includes protecting consistent sleep and wake times, taking short mental breaks during the day, eating regularly to stabilize blood sugar, reducing multitasking where possible, practicing brief calming techniques to reset the nervous system. These habits help cortisol settle, allowing the brain to return to efficient processing. Cortisol doesn't just affect stress, it directly affects how clearly and quickly your brain works. After 30, reduced hormonal buffering allows stress hormones to overload the brain, slowing focus and mental speed. When cortisol is calmed and recovery is supported, mental clarity often improves without forcing productivity or effort. Thyroid hormones and brain energy. When thinking feels heavy. When your brain feels sluggish, not scattered. Sometimes mental slowness doesn't feel like distraction, it feels like heaviness. Thoughts move slowly, motivation is low, and even familiar tasks require more effort. For many women after 30, this happens because thyroid hormones aren't delivering energy to the brain efficiently, even when blood tests look normal. What thyroid hormones do for the brain. Thyroid hormones act like the brain's energy regulators. They help brain cells produce energy, fire signals efficiently, maintain focus and alertness, process information at a normal speed. When thyroid signaling is strong, thinking feels light and responsive. When signaling slows, the brain still works. It just works more slowly. Why mental slowness can happen with normal labs. Many women are told their thyroid is fine because standard tests fall within range. But thyroid health isn't only about hormone levels, it's about hormone conversion and cellular response. Poor sleep, chronic stress, and inflammation can interfere with how thyroid hormones are converted into their active form and how well brain cells respond to them. This creates a functional slowdown without a clear diagnosis. Why this becomes more common after 30. After 30, the thyroid becomes more sensitive to stress hormones like cortisol. Elevated cortisol interferes with thyroid hormone conversion and blocks thyroid receptors in the brain. At the same time, fluctuating estrogen affects thyroid-binding proteins and receptor sensitivity. The combined effect is less reliable thyroid signaling, especially during stressful or sleep-deprived periods. How poor sleep slows thyroid-driven brain energy. Sleep is when thyroid hormone signaling resets. When sleep is light or fragmented, thyroid conversion becomes less efficient. Brain cells receive weaker energy signals. Mental stamina drops the next day. This explains why mental slowness often follows poor sleep, even if sleep duration looks adequate. Symptoms women commonly notice. When thyroid-driven brain energy is low, women often experience slow or heavy thinking, brain fog that doesn't lift easily, low motivation, difficulty initiating tasks, cold sensitivity or low body warmth, fatigue that feels physical, not emotional. These symptoms often fluctuate, which makes them easy to dismiss or misinterpret. Why this is often overlooked. Thyroid discussions often focus on weight or fatigue, not cognition. Mental slowness is rarely linked back to thyroid signaling unless symptoms are severe. Understanding that the brain is one of the most energy-sensitive organs explains why cognitive symptoms appear early, sometimes before classic thyroid signs. Doctor-approved ways to support thyroid-related brain energy. Supporting thyroid-driven mental clarity is about reducing interference, not forcing stimulation. Helpful support includes protecting consistent restorative sleep, managing stress to reduce cortisol, eating balanced meals to support metabolism, avoiding extreme dieting or overexertion, supporting gentle daily routines. These habits help thyroid hormones communicate more effectively with the brain. Thyroid hormones play a crucial role in brain energy and processing speed. After 30, stress, poor sleep, and hormone fluctuations can slow thyroid signaling even when labs look normal. This creates the feeling of mental heaviness or slowness, not because your brain is failing, but because energy delivery is reduced. When thyroid support improves, mental clarity often returns gradually and naturally. Blood sugar and brain fog, the missed connection. When your mind slows after meals or between them, you may notice that your thinking feels sharp at some times of the day and strangely foggy at others. Focus fades mid-morning, afternoons feel mentally dull, or your brain feels slow and shaky if meals are delayed. This pattern isn't random. For many women after 30, Mental slowness is closely linked to blood sugar and insulin fluctuations, a connection that's often overlooked. Why the brain is sensitive to blood sugar. Your brain relies almost entirely on glucose for fuel. Unlike muscles, it can't store energy. It needs a steady, reliable supply to think clearly and process information quickly. When blood sugar is stable, brain cells fire efficiently. When blood sugar rises too high or drops too low, brain signaling slows. Focus, memory, and mental speed suffer even if the rest of your body feels fine. How insulin affects mental clarity. Insulin helps move glucose from the bloodstream into cells. When insulin works well, the brain gets a smooth, steady energy supply. After 30, insulin sensitivity often becomes less stable due to chronic stress and elevated cortisol, poor or inconsistent sleep, hormonal shifts in estrogen and progesterone, skipped meals or restrictive eating. When insulin signaling is disrupted, blood sugar rises and falls more dramatically, and the brain feels every swing. Why blood sugar swings? Feel like mental slowness. When blood sugar drops, the brain reduces non-essential functions like focus and memory. Thinking feels slow or foggy. Word recall becomes harder. Mental stamina disappears. When blood sugar spikes and crashes, the brain briefly feels alert, then becomes dull and heavy. Concentration fades quickly. This up and down pattern often gets mislabeled as poor focus or lack of motivation. Why this becomes more noticeable after 30. Younger bodies often compensate for blood sugar swings without obvious symptoms. After 30, hormonal buffering decreases. Estrogen fluctuations affect insulin sensitivity. Progesterone decline removes calming support. Cortisol rises more easily and directly interferes with glucose regulation. The result is a brain that reacts faster and more noticeably to even small blood sugar changes. Common signs. Blood sugar is affecting your thinking. When mental slowness is blood sugar related, women often notice brain fog between meals, difficulty focusing in the afternoon, feeling shaky, irritable, or mentally off when hungry, clear thinking returning after eating, cravings paired with poor concentration. These patterns are important clues, not personal flaws. Why this is often missed. Blood sugar issues are usually discussed in the context of diabetes or weight, not cognition. Many women don't realize that mental clarity is one of the first systems affected by glucose instability. As a result, women may push themselves harder mentally instead of stabilizing their fuel supply. Doctor-approved ways to support blood sugar for clear thinking. Supporting blood sugar doesn't require extremes. Helpful habits include eating regular meals without long gaps, including protein, fiber, and healthy fats at meals, avoiding large sugar-only snacks, managing stress to reduce cortisol interference, protecting sleep, which improves insulin sensitivity. These habits provide the brain with consistent fuel. Mental slowness can be a fuel issue, not a focus issue. After 30, blood sugar and insulin fluctuations affect the brain more strongly, slowing thinking and reducing clarity. When glucose supply becomes steadier, the brain regains speed, focus, and mental ease without forcing productivity or effort. A brain-clearing hormone reset routine. When your mind feels slow, the solution isn't to push harder or try to think faster. The brain clears when hormones are supported consistently throughout the day. This reset routine focuses on rhythm, fuel, and calm, the three things your brain depends on to work smoothly after 30. Morning, set the brain's energy signal. Early, mental clarity begins in the morning. Waking at a consistent time helps regulate cortisol, which sets the tone for focus and alertness. Getting natural light soon after waking improves brain signaling and supports estrogen and thyroid communication. Eating a balanced breakfast within the first hour with protein and healthy fats stabilizes insulin and prevents early brain fog. Avoid starting the day in rush mode. Even a few calm minutes helps your nervous system shift into a focused state instead of survival mode. Midday, protect mental fuel and focus. The brain doesn't tolerate long gaps without fuel. Skipped meals or rushed lunches cause blood sugar dips that slow thinking. Regular meals with protein, fiber, and steady carbohydrates keep glucose available to the brain. Gentle movement during the day improves blood flow to the brain and supports estrogen's role in cognitive function. Short mental breaks reduce cortisol, allowing focus to return instead of fading. Afternoon, prevent cognitive overload. Many women notice mental slowness peak in the afternoon. This often happens when fatigue, stress, and blood sugar instability overlap. Eating on time, limiting excessive caffeine, and reducing multitasking help prevent cortisol from overwhelming the brain. Slowing the pace here protects mental clarity later in the day. Evening, let the brain power down. Mental sharpness the next day depends on how well the brain rests at night. Dimming lights, reducing stimulation, and avoiding heavy mental work in the evening support melatonin and progesterone, which prepare the brain for repair. Calm routines signal safety, allowing stress hormones to fall and brain energy systems to reset. Sleep where brain speed is rebuilt. Deep, consistent sleep restores thyroid signaling, estrogen balance, and glucose regulation in the brain. Going to bed and waking up at similar times matters more than sleeping longer. Even if sleep isn't perfect, consistency teaches hormones when to reset, and that predictability brings clarity back over time. Mental clarity returns when hormones feel supported, not pressured. By creating steady rhythms, stabilizing blood sugar, calming stress hormones, and protecting sleep, the brain regains speed and ease naturally. You're not losing your sharpness, your brain is asking for hormonal support. Conclusion. Feeling mentally slow doesn't mean you're losing intelligence or focus. For many women after 30, it's a hormonal signal, not a personal failure. Hormones like estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, thyroid hormones, and insulin directly influence how quickly and clearly your brain works, and when they're out of balance, thinking can feel heavy and slow. The reassuring truth is that mental clarity is very responsive to gentle support. Small daily habits create powerful hormonal shifts. When you nourish your body, reduce stress, protect sleep, and create steady routines, your brain often becomes clearer, sharper, and more confident again. Educational only, not medical advice. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching.